So today I'm going to be doing a quick unboxing and setup video of the new Xiaomi Redmi Pad 2. Now it's not the newest one, they have released the Pad 2 Pro, but this is a slightly toned down version of that tablet that still offers some really great specs at about 170 quid. So I'm just going to whip it out the box, set it all up and just see what this tablet is all about and if it's worth your hard-earned cash. And for more unboxings on the latest budget tablets and smartphones, etc., hit subscribe on the channel. Let's get into it. Okay, so here is the new Xiaomi Redmi Pad 2, powered by Xiaomi's HyperOS and with Dolby Atmos support on the speakers. I've got the 8GB RAM and 256GB model, and I've got it in lavender purple. It's also available in graphite grey and mint green. So we'll just whip it out of the box. I'm quite glad that they've sent me the higher tier model with that 8 gigs of RAM, because the 4GB RAM model is, I think, a little bit basic. So there we go. On the top, you've got a few specs: 11-inch, 2.5K crystal clear display, 9,000 mAh battery, quad speakers, like I said, with that Dolby Atmos, and then advanced Helio G100 processor. So let's just put that aside for 1 second, see if there's any more bits in here. That's empty, that's empty. Ooh. And then you've got a 2-pin charger in there, which is nice. Can it focus on that? Probably not. It only supports up to 18-watt charging, this tablet. So, and then you've got a USB-A to USB-C cable. So we'll just pop that aside for a second. So here is the tablet in this nice sort of materialed sleeve, which is pretty nice, which I apparently can't open. Oh, it's because it's up there. Duh. So let's just peel that off, and then the tablet should hopefully slide out. And there we go, lavender purple, although it's not a particularly saturated purple. 8-megapixel rear camera, and then of course you've got that large display. Power buttons on there, which feel nice and clicky. You've got a SIM tray in there as well. On the bottom, you've got, what's going on my phone? It's not. 3.5mm headphone jack, USB-C charging port, and then 2 of the 4 speakers that you get on the tablet, and then the power button on the top. So we'll just power her on, see if she's got any juice. So there we go, we've just booted up Xiaomi HyperOS, and then we'll just go through the usual setup process. Let's choose, go right to the bottom, although I could have probably just searched for it. United Kingdom, next. Agree to the terms and conditions, which nobody ever really reads. So you can set it up taking the information and all your data from another device, whether it's an iPhone or an iPad or another Android device. I'm going to skip that and just set it up as a brand new device. So I'm just going to connect to my Wi-Fi and then sign into my Google account. Okay, so after putting in your Wi-Fi and your Google information, it will then give you the option of copying your apps and data over from your Google account, etc. I'm not going to be doing that just yet. Now you've got a couple of options for your screen lock. You've got the screen lock, which will be a pattern or a pin, or you've got a 2D face unlock using that 5-megapixel selfie camera. Of course, out of these two, the screen lock is going to be the most secure. So we'll do a pattern this time. So we'll just do a simple pattern, confirm that, and then I'm just going to accept all of the usual bits. I'm not going to turn back up on just yet. Leave and get reminder, and then it will just take a second or so just to get the tablet ready. Just accept those bits as well. You can change the font of the tablet on the initial setup, although it's saying recommended on that one, so we'll go with that. And then gestures, of course you can use buttons as well if you don't want to use the gestures. And then it's preparing the system. Now this is the first Xiaomi product I've used since I did a video on the Poco M6, which was a few months ago. I haven't covered a huge amount of Xiaomi products on my channel, so if you want me to look at more, definitely get subscribed and comment down below if you want me to look at a few more. Okay, so here is your Redmi Pad 2 out of the box. There is no apps tray by default, so that's something that I typically add afterwards. So we'll just jump into the settings. Like I said, I haven't used a Xiaomi product for a while, so it might take me a second or two to find out. I normally, to be honest, oh no, I don't want to do that. So I'll find that in a second, but I'm not going to go through every single part of the settings. It's going to be very similar to what you'll find on most other Android tablets, etc. What I will go on to is personalization. It's taken a minute or two just because it's still setting up a few of the apps, etc. And this is of course where you can select different wallpapers, and you can download more wallpapers and more themes, etc. You can change the lock style of the tablet. You know, you can switch between all of these different ones. I won't be changing the one on there just yet. You can play around with your icons. You can change the color, etc. And then you can go back onto the font and you can change the size and you can change the font as well, which I'm not going to do just yet. And then face data and privacy, etc. Stylus and keyboard. Now there is stylus support on this tablet as well, which is great, but I haven't got one to connect, unfortunately. But just so you know, you can connect a stylus and use that on this tablet as well, which is really good. Display and brightness. If I just jump into refresh rate, it will dynamically switch between 60 Hertz and the higher 90 Hertz. It's not the fast 120 Hertz that I think you find on the Pad 2 Pro. And then if I just whiz down to where's about, see, it's at the top on here, it's always at the bottom on other tablets. So about tablet, and then you've got a bit of information here. 256 gigs of storage, Android 15, Android security patch. Now is that the 3rd? I'm assuming that's the 1st of March 2025. It's backwards for me at least anyway. And then you can go apps updater. So there's a few apps that you can update. Features for tablets, horizontal app layout, security status, etc. Let's click on that. No, that's just changing the name. See, I'm a bit baffled by this for some reason. I haven't used, like I said, a Xiaomi product in a little while. So we're running 8 gigs of RAM, MediaTek Helio G100 Ultra. Now, it may sound like it's a big improvement over the G99 that you found on a lot of older budget devices, but it's got the same CPU and GPU. So performance-wise, it's going to be very similar to that. I think it's just that they changed the name just to make it seem like a newer processor, but for the most part, it's going to be very, very similar. Right, so I've just downloaded Need for Speed No Limits, but before I just test out the gaming, I'm just going to do a very quick rundown of the main specs of the tablet, which, granted, yes, I probably should have done at the beginning, but I'll just quickly run through them for you now while I change to an apps drawer. So we have an 11-inch 90 Hz IPS LCD display with a resolution of 1600 by 2560. That's about 270 pixels per inch. Like I said, 8 gigs of RAM, 256 gigs of its UFS 2.2 storage. So it's not one of the faster UFS 3.0 or 3.1 storage. You've got a 5 megapixel selfie camera, which is going to be really only good for video calls and that sort of thing. And then you get an 8 megapixel rear camera, both good for 1080p video at 30 FPS. You've got stereo speakers, so you've got a quad speaker setup, 2 here and then 2 on the bottom, which are tuned by Dolby Atmos for some nice full sound. It's a full aluminium frame, as to be expected from most tablets these days, even these cheaper ones. You've got a 9,000 milliamp hour battery with support for 18-watt fast charging. You've got Bluetooth 5.3. Unfortunately, there's no NFC or there's no radio or anything like that. So overall, it's a really nicely spec'd tablet. And there we go, we have the apps tray as well, just to make navigating a little bit easier and finding your apps, etc. I do tend to prefer it that way. Okay, so let's just quickly test out a little bit of, let's turn that down a smidge. Need for Speed, No Limits. So, can't drive apparently. So running the G100 processor, I'm not expecting huge gains over the G99 commonly found in other sort of more entry-level tablets and smartphones. It is a dependable chip, don't get me wrong. I think that's why it was so common in these sort of more budget phones and tablets. Seems to be pretty smooth on this. Oh, go away. So the 8 gigs of RAM is definitely going to be helping in this case. And one thing I forgot to mention is you can expand that 256 gigs of storage as well with an extra 2 terabytes. So you can potentially have loads of storage on this tablet. But yeah, performance-wise so far, it seems pretty good. Although driving into buildings doesn't help. But yeah, these graphics seem pretty good. My driving is terrible. I mean, let me know down in the comments, are you a gamer? Is this the sort of tablet that you would consider if you're a bit of a gamer? I know things like Genshin Impact, etc. are gonna be more demanding and that sort of thing. But for basic games, this will be absolutely spot on, I think. Everything else seems to be pretty good. Okay, so that's just my very quick sort of setup and hands-on and of course little gaming test with the Redmi Pad 2. I will be dropping a more in-depth review just after I've had a chance to have a little play around with it just a little bit more. So that'll be a more in-depth video than this little unboxing. But if you're interested in seeing that video, definitely get subscribed to the channel. So far, seems like a really nice tablet for 170 quid. But like I said, I'll be dropping a more in-depth review. I look forward to seeing you there, and I'll catch you in that video.